You've been told your entire life to be nice, polite, accommodating, to smile even when you don't feel like it, to say yes when every fiber of your being screams no. Society has conditioned you to believe that being agreeable is the key to your value. But let me ask you this, has it worked? Have your endless sacrifices, your unyielding patience, and your willingness to please at all costs earned you the respect you deserve? Or have they left you feeling drained, invisible, and taken for granted? Let me tell you something, the world doesn't respect those who bend over backward. People, especially men, don't value what they can get easily. They value strength, boundaries, and the ability to say, this is what I deserve, and I will not settle for less. Being nice doesn't mean you're weak. It's a beautiful trait when given to those who are deserving. But when it becomes your default mode, especially in relationships with men who take and never give, you're handing over your power. And every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you tolerate disrespect in the name of being nice, you're teaching the world how to treat you. You see, men will often take as much as you allow. They'll push boundaries, test limits, and see how far you're willing to go to keep the peace. But when you stop being nice, when you start standing up for yourself, you'll find out something remarkable. The right men will respect you more for it. The wrong ones, they'll disappear, and trust me, that's no loss. So today I'm here to challenge you, to help you break free from the chains of unnecessary niceness and step into the version of yourself who commands respect. The version of yourself who knows her worth and doesn't settle for breadcrumbs. If you're tired of feeling like your kindness is being weaponized against you, tired of being walked over and undervalued, then this message is for you. And by the time we're done here, you'll understand why being nice isn't always a virtue, it can be a trap. So buckle up. It's time to unlearn, to rebuild, and to rise. Niceness without boundaries might seem like a virtue, but in reality, it often becomes a liability. Society teaches women to be agreeable, to accommodate others, and to avoid conflict. While these traits can foster harmony in certain contexts, without boundaries, they become a breeding ground for disrespect. Niceness that lacks structure tells others, I'll accept whatever you do. And this can lead to being overlooked, undervalued, or outright exploited. Boundaries are your personal framework of self-respect. They're the invisible lines that say, this is what I allow in my life, and this is what I do not. When you're too nice, especially to men, without setting clear limits, you unknowingly teach them how to treat you. A man who knows he can walk all over you will keep doing so, not necessarily because he's cruel, but because there are no consequences. Boundaries, however, force people to reflect on their actions and to treat you with the respect you demand. Consider this. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you're placing someone else's comfort above your own. And while this might seem noble in the moment, it's a disservice to both parties. Men, like anyone else, learn through interactions. If you let them cross a line once, they'll keep pushing it. Your endless niceness becomes an unspoken permission slip for mistreatment. Boundaries don't make you unkind, they make you strong. Saying no when necessary doesn't diminish your niceness, it enhances your worth. It shows you have enough self-respect to value your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. And here's the truth, when you establish boundaries, the right people will respect you more for it. The wrong ones, they'll fall away, and that's no loss at all. So start practicing the art of saying no without guilt. Speak up when something doesn't feel right. Enforce your boundaries unapologetically. Niceness without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-sabotage. The world, and men in particular, don't value what they can easily take for granted. But when you combine kindness with clear limits, you become a force to be reckoned with. Human beings inherently value what they earn. We treasure things we've worked hard for because they feel like an extension of our effort and perseverance. But what happens when something comes too easily? It's often taken for granted. This same principle applies to relationships, especially between men and women. When you're constantly giving your time, your energy, your love without requiring anything in return, you unintentionally teach others that your efforts are expendable. Imagine a man who doesn't have to invest any effort to win your approval. He doesn't need to show up consistently, respect your boundaries, or make you feel valued because you're already doing all the heavy lifting. He doesn't feel the need to reciprocate because you're overextending yourself without hesitation. Over time, your constant giving becomes an expectation rather than something he values. And when kindness becomes an expectation, it loses its worth. This doesn't mean you should withhold kindness or play games. It means you need to set a standard for how others treat you. Men, like anyone else, respect relationships that challenge them to grow and invest. When you give freely and endlessly, you're depriving them of the opportunity to rise to your level, to earn your respect and admiration. Relationships thrive on mutual effort, not one-sided sacrifice. Being overly nice also deprives you of balance. The resentment starts to build when you realize that your kindness isn't being reciprocated. You begin to feel used, undervalued, and invisible. This isn't because you're unworthy, it's because you didn't set the terms for how you deserve to be treated. So stop giving endlessly without pause. Let others work for your time, your energy, and your affection. Not because you're trying to play hard to get, but because you value yourself enough to require effort. When a man has to work for your kindness, he'll treasure it. And when he doesn't, that's not your problem, it's his loss. Remember, people don't value what comes easy. They value what challenges them, what makes them grow. Your kindness should be a privilege, not a commodity handed out without thought. Learn to protect your energy and reserve your efforts for those who truly deserve them. Niceness, when practiced to an extreme, often becomes a mask we wear to gain approval. You say yes when you want to say no, you smile when you're hurt, and you agree to things that don't align with your values, all in the name of being liked. While this might keep the peace in the moment, over time it chips away at something far more valuable, your authenticity. Authenticity is the foundation of self-respect. It's the ability to be true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient for others. But when you're overly nice, you start compromising who you are to fit the expectations of those around you. This is particularly damaging in relationships with men. By constantly prioritizing their comfort, their needs, and their opinions, you risk losing sight of your own identity. You become a reflection of what they want rather than the person you genuinely are. The problem with sacrificing authenticity is that it doesn't lead to true connection. People can't love or respect the real you if they never get to see it. And while being agreeable might make you more likable in the short term, it doesn't earn you the kind of respect that comes from standing firm in your truth. Men, especially, are drawn to women who know who they are and aren't afraid to show it. Being nice doesn't mean being fake, but it can often lead to suppressing your true feelings. You might avoid confrontation, not because you're afraid of conflict, but because you've been taught that being nice means keeping the peace. But peace at the expense of your voice and your boundaries is not peace, it's silence. And silence breeds resentment. The courage to say no, to disagree, and to stand up for yourself is not the absence of niceness, it's the presence of authenticity. It shows that you value your own opinions and needs just as much as you value those of others. And when you start living authentically, you'll notice something powerful. The right people will gravitate toward you, while the wrong ones will fade away. So let go of the fear of being disliked. Embrace the discomfort of standing firm in your truth. Niceness isn't about being agreeable, it's about being kind without losing yourself. And when you stop sacrificing authenticity for approval, you'll discover relationships built on mutual respect, not pretense. Respect is not something you can beg for, it's something you command. Men respect women who know their worth because it forces them to rise to the occasion. If you carry yourself with confidence and stand firm in your values, men have no choice but to acknowledge and honor your strength. When you let others take advantage of you in the name of being nice, you send a message that you don't value yourself, and if you don't value yourself, why should anyone else? Knowing your worth starts with recognizing what you bring to the table. You are not just your looks or your ability to be agreeable. Your worth is rooted in your intelligence, your talents, your kindness, and your ability to create meaningful connections. When you truly understand that, you stop tolerating anything less than what you deserve. You don't settle for half-hearted effort, disrespect, or a lack of reciprocity. Instead, you raise your standards, and in doing so, you raise the standards of those around you. Men are naturally drawn to women who challenge them. A woman who knows her worth won't bend over backward to make others happy at the expense of her own happiness. She isn't afraid to speak her mind, enforce her boundaries, and walk away from situations that don't serve her. This kind of self-assuredness demands respect because it shows that she values herself above all else. When you don't enforce your worth, you allow others to define it for you. Men will take as much as you're willing to give. And if you keep overextending yourself without requiring anything in return, they'll assume that's all you're capable of. But when you set clear expectations, you create an environment where respect isn't optional, it's required. It's not about being difficult or playing games. It's about standing firm in your values and teaching others how to treat you. Men will respect you more when they know you won't tolerate anything less than what you deserve. They'll rise to meet your standards or step aside, and either outcome is a win for you. Knowing your worth and enforcing it isn't selfish, it's self-respect. And the moment you start respecting yourself, you'll notice that the world and the men in it begin to respect you too. Niceness is a beautiful quality, but it loses its power when it becomes an obligation rather than a choice. Many women feel compelled to be nice, especially to men, out of fear of rejection, judgment, or conflict. This compulsion strips away the authenticity of kindness, turning it into a duty rather than a gift. When niceness is expected, it's no longer appreciated, it's taken for granted. Think about the times you've smiled when you didn't feel like it, agreed to something you didn't want to do, or stayed silent when you had every reason to speak up. Were those acts of genuine kindness, or were they driven by a sense of obligation? When you're nice because you feel you have to be, you're not being true to yourself. You're prioritizing someone else's comfort over your own, and that kind of niceness comes at a cost. Men in particular can sense when niceness is forced. Genuine kindness is magnetic. It draws people in and fosters mutual respect. But obligatory niceness often comes across as insecurity or a lack of self-worth. When you're overly accommodating, it can signal that you're trying too hard to earn approval, which can lead to being undervalued or dismissed altogether. Being nice should never mean putting yourself last. True kindness comes from a place of strength, not fear. It's about giving because you want to, not because you feel you have to. It's about setting boundaries and saying no when something doesn't align with your values. When you make niceness a choice rather than an obligation, it becomes a powerful tool for building meaningful relationships. Men respect women who are kind because they want to be, not because they're afraid of what might happen if they're not. When your niceness is authentic, it holds value. It shows that you're confident enough to be generous with your time, energy, and compassion, but only to those who deserve it. Take a moment to evaluate your niceness. Are you being kind because it's a true reflection of who you are, or because you feel obligated to be? When you start choosing niceness on your terms, you'll not only feel more empowered, but also attract people who genuinely appreciate and reciprocate your kindness. Politeness is often praised as a virtue, but without the backing of confidence and boundaries, it loses its power. You can be polite and still be overlooked. You can be polite and still be disrespected. Why? Because politeness on its own is not enough to command respect. It's confidence and boundaries that make your words and actions meaningful. Confidence is magnetic. It draws people to you because it shows that you know who you are and what you stand for. Men, in particular, are drawn to confident women who aren't afraid to speak their minds and stand firm in their beliefs. Politeness without confidence can come across as meekness, while politeness with confidence becomes a sign of strength. Boundaries are equally essential. They're the lines you draw to protect your time, energy, and peace of mind. Without boundaries, your politeness becomes an open invitation for others to take advantage of you. Men will test your limits not always out of malice, but to see how far they can go. If you don't enforce your boundaries, you're teaching them that you're willing to put up with anything. Confidence and boundaries work hand in hand. Confidence allows you to set boundaries without fear, and boundaries reinforce your confidence. When you say no firmly but politely, it sends a clear message. You value yourself and won't compromise your self-respect for anyone. This combination of assertiveness and kindness is far more powerful than politeness alone. Being confident doesn't mean being rude or dismissive. It means knowing your worth and communicating it effectively. It means standing up for yourself while remaining respectful. And when you combine confidence with clear boundaries, you create an aura of strength that commands respect, even without words. Politeness on its own is like a soft melody, pleasant, but easy to ignore. But when paired with confidence and boundaries, it becomes a symphony that demands attention. Men respect women who can balance kindness with strength because it shows that they're in control of their lives. It's not about being harsh or unapproachable. It's about being firm, fair, and self-assured. Don't rely on politeness alone to gain respect. Pair it with confidence and boundaries and watch how the dynamic shifts. People, including men, will begin to see you as someone who is kind, but not to be taken lightly. And that's a combination no one can ignore. Kindness is one of the most powerful and beautiful traits a person can possess. However, it becomes a weakness when it is exploited by those who see it as an opportunity to take advantage. Often we don't recognize when our kindness is being misused because we want to believe in the goodness of others. But failing to see the warning signs can lead to emotional exhaustion, resentment, and a sense of betrayal. Exploitation of kindness often comes disguised as subtle patterns. It might start with someone constantly asking for favors without reciprocation. It could be a man who expects you to always accommodate his needs, his time, and his emotions, while offering little to no effort in return. At first, you may dismiss these behaviors, telling yourself that helping others is just part of being nice. But over time, you'll notice the imbalance. The relationship becomes one-sided, and your kindness feels more like a burden than a gift. Recognizing when your kindness is being exploited requires self-awareness and honesty. Pay attention to how you feel after interacting with someone. Do you feel drained or energized? Do you feel appreciated, or do you sense that your efforts are being taken for granted? Exploitation often leaves you feeling empty, like no matter how much you give, it's never enough. Another red flag is a lack of respect for your boundaries. Someone who truly values your kindness will respect your limits. But someone who is exploiting you will push those boundaries, guilt-tripping or manipulating you into giving more than you're comfortable with. It's not uncommon for manipulators to use your own sense of empathy against you, making you feel selfish for wanting to prioritize your own needs. It's important to remember that being kind does not mean being a doormat. You can say no without losing your compassion. You can stand up for yourself and still be a kind person. In fact, setting boundaries and refusing to tolerate exploitation is an act of kindness toward yourself. Learning to recognize when your kindness is being exploited isn't about becoming cynical or distrusting. It's about valuing yourself enough to identify when someone is not reciprocating your energy and effort. When you protect your kindness, you ensure that it remains a strength, not a vulnerability. Surround yourself with people who value and appreciate your generosity rather than those who see it as an opportunity for selfish gain. The word no is one of the simplest yet most powerful tools at your disposal. Yet for many women, especially those who pride themselves on being nice, it's one of the hardest words to say. The fear of disappointing others, being perceived as difficult, or creating conflict often holds people back from saying no when they should. But here's the truth. Saying no isn't just about protecting your time and energy, it's about reclaiming your power. When you say no, you are drawing a line in the sand. You're asserting your boundaries and communicating that your needs matter. This act of self-respect sends a powerful message to the world, and particularly to men, that you are not someone to be taken for granted. Men often test boundaries to see how much they can get away with. When you refuse to go along with something that doesn't align with your values, you show that you are in control of your life. The power of no lies in its simplicity. You don't owe anyone an elaborate explanation or justification for your decision. A firm, respectful no is enough. The more you practice saying it, the more natural it will feel and the more others will come to respect it. People, including men, tend to respect those who are decisive and clear about what they will and won't tolerate. Saying no also helps you prioritize your own well-being. Every time you agree to something that goes against your instincts or stretches you too thin, you're giving away a piece of your energy that could be used for something meaningful. Over time, this leads to burnout and resentment. But when you say no, you're choosing yourself. You're giving yourself the space and freedom to focus on what truly matters to you. The fear of saying no often comes from a place of wanting to please others. But here's the irony: people respect those who respect themselves. Men, especially, are drawn to women who are unapologetically authentic and know how to stand their ground. Saying no doesn't make you less nice, it makes you more confident. It shows that you value your own time and energy enough to protect it. Practice saying no without guilt. Start small if you must, but don't shy away from using it when necessary. Each time you do, you're reclaiming your power, reinforcing your boundaries, and teaching others how to treat you with respect. Respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship, but it doesn't come from self-sacrifice. Many people believe that giving endlessly, accommodating every need, and putting others first will earn them respect. In reality, this approach often backfires. Men, like anyone else, respect those who respect themselves. If you constantly put yourself last, you unintentionally send the message that your needs and boundaries don't matter. Self-respect is the cornerstone of earning respect from others. When you prioritize your own well-being, set boundaries, and stand firm in your values, you show the world that you value yourself. This isn't selfish, it's essential. Men respect women who are clear about what they want and unapologetic about their standards. They respect women who don't bend over backward to please everyone, but instead live authentically and confidently. Self-sacrifice, on the other hand, often leads to resentment and imbalance. When you give too much of yourself without expecting anything in return, you create a dynamic where your efforts are undervalued. Men may begin to see your kindness as an obligation rather than a gift. They'll take what you offer without considering what it costs you, not out of malice, but because you've made it easy for them to do so. Respect isn't about being accommodating to the point of exhaustion, it's about knowing when to say enough. When you respect yourself, you don't tolerate mistreatment or settle for less than you deserve. You demand mutual effort and reciprocity in your relationships. And the remarkable thing is that when you respect yourself, others are naturally inclined to respect you as well. Men in particular are drawn to women who exude self-respect. They admire those who have the confidence to walk away from situations that don't align with their values. A woman who respects herself sends a powerful message: I know my worth and I won't settle for anything less. This kind of strength is magnetic. It commands respect without ever needing to ask for it. Stop sacrificing yourself in the hopes of earning respect. Instead, focus on cultivating self-respect. Set boundaries. Prioritize your well-being and live authentically. Respect isn't given freely. It's earned through the way you treat yourself. And when you start valuing yourself, you'll find that the world and the men in it will begin to value you too. Relationships, whether romantic or otherwise, thrive on balance. True connection isn't about one person giving endlessly while the other takes without reciprocating. It's about mutual effort, shared respect, and a deep understanding that both individuals bring value to the relationship. If you find yourself constantly being the one to compromise, to adjust, or to give more than you receive, then you're not in a partnership, you're in a one-sided dynamic. Men, like anyone else, are wired to appreciate what they have to invest effort into. When you overextend yourself in the name of being nice, you rob them of the opportunity to contribute meaningfully to the relationship. Relationships that lack balance, where one person is always giving and the other is always taking, often lead to frustration, resentment, and eventually a complete breakdown of the connection. Mutual effort means both parties are willing to show up, put in the work, and contribute to the relationship's growth. It means there's respect for each other's time, energy, and emotions. When you're always giving, you may think you're creating harmony, but in reality, you're fostering dependence and entitlement. And the more one-sided the giving becomes, the less valuable your contributions appear to the other person. Men respect and value women who hold them accountable to contribute equally. They admire women who challenge them to step up and be better. True connection doesn't come from someone who gives everything without question. It comes from a relationship where both people invest their time, energy, and effort willingly. This mutual exchange creates respect, appreciation, and a deeper bond that isn't easily broken. So stop trying to buy love or respect with excessive niceness. Start expecting effort from the other side. Let men prove their worth by how they treat you, how they listen to you, and how they invest in the relationship. Because a connection built on one-sided giving isn't a connection, it's dependency. And dependency will never lead to respect, growth, or true fulfillment. Relationships are partnerships, not projects. You're not responsible for carrying the entire emotional load. When you allow someone else to meet you halfway, you create a dynamic where both parties feel valued, respected, and connected on a deeper level. It's time to rethink what it means to be nice. Too often, niceness becomes a mask for fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of being seen as difficult. But true strength lies in knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and standing firm in your values. Men respect women who respect themselves, who aren't afraid to say no, and who demand mutual effort in their relationships. Being kind doesn't mean sacrificing yourself at the altar of someone else's comfort. It means being generous with your heart and your energy, but only to those who deserve it. It means recognizing when your kindness is being exploited and having the courage to walk away. And it means understanding that true connection comes from mutual respect and shared effort, not from one-sided giving. So, stop being nice just for the sake of being nice. Be kind, be strong, and most importantly, be unapologetically yourself. Because the right people, those who truly value and respect you, will rise to meet you. And the ones who don't, they were never worthy of your time in the first place.